Hey everyone, welcome to the Laser channel. My name is Greg and welcome to this project video where today I will be making this 2-layer wooden project. My mom's birthday is coming up and I thought this would be the perfect gift. Stay tuned as I guide you through the process of making this project in 3 easy steps. Welcome back. Before I start into the 3 easy steps to create this project, I'm going to briefly cover the materials that I'll be using. I'm going to start with the laser machine that I'll be using. This is an Atomstack X20 Pro laser machine featuring a 20-watt laser module. It also includes a powerful air assist kit. The project material that I'll be using is going to be 1/4-inch birch plywood. I have 2 sheets that are cut out 12 inches by 12 inches. And to finish this project off, I'm going to be using acrylic paint. Of course, feel free to use whatever paint you would like to use or what's available to you. If you'd like to know more about any of the machines or the materials that I'll be using, I will have product links in the description down below. These are all safe links that I've created and tested. Now that the materials are covered, we can start with step number 1, and that is to go into the computer, jump on the internet, and find a graphic to use. The graphic website that I like to use from time to time is amid.com. It's a free place to get a lot of vector files for making cutouts just like in this project. You'll see that there's a lot of ads on this page, and that's also what makes this a free page. To find the graphic that I'm using, I just went to the search bar and typed in mom. And scrolling down, and here's the image that I found for today's video. And that opens up this new window and it tells us what the file name is, and we can download it as a CDR file, that's a Corel Draw file, or a DXF free vector file. Now I believe neither one of these files that we're going to download can be opened directly in Lightburn software. So I'm going to show you how to convert that after I scroll down this page here past all of these ads and past a couple more ads, and we'll verify that we're not a robot. And once it verifies that, I'll be able to download the file. The download is complete. Only took about 30 seconds on my slow internet here out in the countryside. And it downloaded that file as a zip file, so there's multiple files inside of that folder. And here we have a couple ads that will take you back to the website where you just downloaded it. And this top one here is the CDR file. The next file is the DXF file, and they also include a PDF file of this. The next thing that I'm going to do is go over to this website here called online-converting.com, and this is what I use to convert either the CDR file or the DXF file over into an AI file, or more preferably an SVG file that is perfectly compatible in the Lightburn software. I'm going to take those files, drop them into this area, and then next up, we'll take a look in Lightburn what these files look like. Before I jump into Lightburn, I want to let you know that 1/4-inch birch plywood, I took a little sample of that off camera and I did some test cutouts on the laser machine, so I found some good settings for the setup that I'm running here today. Back in Lightburn, we can see that CDR file that we just downloaded and then converted over to an SVG file that imports perfectly into this Lightburn software. From that off-camera test with that 1/4-inch plywood that I have, I used a speed of 10 millimeters per second at 100% power, and that just about made it all the way through. But because this is a very intricate cutout, I want to make sure that it perfectly cuts out all of the shapes. So I'm going to be using 2 passes. If you recall from the beginning of this video where I showed you the project that I'll be creating, you'll know that it was 2 layers, and the file that I have on the screen right now is only one. Now, to get the second layer, I'm going to highlight this entire image right here, and I'm going to navigate over to the offset. And what I'm going to do here is I can offset and do an offset of 0, and the top layer of all the cutouts and then this bottom layer that's going to be the base, I can get those to line up perfectly. I did a sample of that, and all of the little intricate pieces on the very outside, I found that they were just so delicate. So what I did is I used this offset command and I make this base layer just a little bit larger than the top layer. And in this way, I get rid of some of the little intricate pieces that could easily snap off of this project. What I'm looking for here is the direction of the offset is to be outward. The corner style is round, and I'm doing just the outer shapes only. And if you've been using this before, you might have delete original objects selected. We definitely want that off. We're going to be doing this as 2 separate layers. This object on the left here, this of course is that offset of the outline. And when I place this close to it, or I can hit Control A to select everything on the screen, and I can navigate to the top of the screen and hit this bullseye, and it will automatically align everything up perfectly. And if you're wondering how I got this outline to be on a different layer, I could just click on just that outline, and then I can pick any different layer that I would like it to be. I'm going to go back to the original layer that I have it on, and this completes step number 1, and that is the computer work of finding the graphic, converting the graphic over if you need to, and then finding some good settings in the Lightburn software. Here I have the first project board that I have, and I'm ready to place that basically in the middle of this honeycomb. And for my best practices, I always like to make sure that my work is perfectly aligned to my laser machine. For this, I use a scrap board that I know is perfectly flat, and I'm going to place that up against this frame member here and slide this down until it touches the honeycomb. And I'm going to just gently push my work material up against this board that is perfectly aligned to this frame member. And in this way, I have a quick, easy way to align work material up to the frame of the machine. I do this all the time. And to keep everything secured in place, I have the honeycomb, which is magnetic, which means these red magnets that I love to use on this channel stick down perfectly. And I like to put one on each side of my project material, and this way it is boxed in place, and this is perfect when doing cutouts. Every once in a while I may have a cutout where one little area didn't quite cut all the way through, and I can check that work and reposition it back in perfectly where all these magnets are, and I can run another pass. It's another great little tip that I love to do. With this all set, I'm going to put the enclosure over the top of the machine here, get all of that smoke exhausted outside. Before I start, there's 2 important things that I want to do, and that is to use this gauge that comes with the laser machine to set the laser in focus with the work material. Once I have that complete, I'm going to go back into Lightburn and do a frame out to make sure that the laser path is always over the work material. Here's that focus gauge. I just set that down on the work material, lower the laser module on it, tighten the laser module, remove the focus gauge, and the laser is in perfect focus. The laser is perfectly framed up on my project material. The last thing I want to do here is, right now both layers are active, and right now I only want the top layer that has all of the intricate cutouts on it to be the first layer that I am cutting out. So I'm going to go to the second layer here, that's the outline, and I'm going to just simply turn that output off. And now I'm ready to turn my air assist pump on and hit the start button. first layer is all done being cut out, but before I remove it from the work area, there is a little bit of a smoke residue on the top surface of that cutout. It's perfectly normal, and a little thing that I picked up along the way over my time laser engraving is to clean that up a little bit while it's still in that work area, while all of those little pieces and parts are still in place. To clean that up, I just take a clean towel, get some water on it, and then using LA's Totally Awesome, just a couple little spritzes on there, and then I can easily wipe the top surface of that project. The cutouts are complete, and that means step 2 of this project is already complete. I want to pause for 1 second. If you are enjoying this video, please consider giving it a like. The other thing that I wanted to share with you is when I picked out the plywood for this project, I didn't pick out the best quality of plywood. When I went to go pick out the material, the local store was very limited on the supply, and when I did look at the back of the wood, there are some spots where they do have some wood putty, and as luck would turn out, I found some of those putty spots on the most intricate part of this project. When the laser gets to those wood filler parts, it just can't cut through it. Basically, no laser can, and there's a couple spots where I did end up just breaking out the material just a little bit, and there's a couple spots where I decided just to leave that material in there just for the sake of producing the video. Wanted to showcase this to you because if you're running into material problems, know that you are not the only one, but finding a good, high quality source of plywood is always a key to any successful project. The last thing that I'd like to do before I start painting this is I'm going to go back to the stamp cloth that I've already sprayed with that LA's Totally Awesome, and I'm just going to give the outside edges a quick little wipe down. This is going to remove so much of that char off the edge of these cut pieces. Just a couple wipes and we can see all the char buildup, and that's all char that is going to stay off of our hands, and as we paint, that char is going to be far less likely to bleed through the paint. The paints that I'm going to be using are acrylic paints. Feel free to use any type of paint that you would like, whether it's spray paint, tempera paint, or even finger paint with the kids on a fun project like this. The first paint that I'm going to be using is this white acrylic paint. This is from the Dollar Tree, and really all I want to do is put down essentially a primer coat on both sets of my layers here, and I just want to kind of pickle the wood a little bit so it has a whitish tint with a little bit of the wood grain coming through. That's going to look really good on this bottom layer. For the top layer, it's going to brighten the wood up just a little bit. That way, when I get over to my yellow and my red and my green, and I've also got some blue here, that white base coat is going to really help all of these colors to pop out. To further pop even more color out, I do have some paint additive. I've got some silver and some red and even some green, so I can put little accents here and there throughout the project. I'll move these off to the side, and for this first one, these other paints that I'm using, I just wanted to mention that these are quality hobby store or craft store paints. Each tube here is costing anywhere from about $5 to $8 a tube. The small tube, from the Dollar Tree is $1.25, and it's some pretty thin stuff. It doesn't coat all that well in just one coat, which is why it's great for just doing this kind of, I call it a primer coat on it, just kind of pickling the wood a little bit. And for this, normally I want to directly apply the paint to the wood like that, but this goes on so thin that once I start spreading this out, we can see that wood grain right through there. I'm just going to continue making sure that I get some paint on all parts of the wood here. Right now, I'm not so much concerned with the direction of my brush strokes. Just want to make sure that I've got all these little happy pieces here of the work project all coated. Once that looks good, I'm going to put down just a few more drops of this white paint, and now I'm going to swipe with the wood grain, making sure that everything looks nice and even. And for this piece, I don't want to have the paint running over the sides, so I can't really just apply the paint directly to the project. Instead, I'm just going to go off to the side here and load up this foam brush, and I can just kind of dap over the top of this. It also builds up just a nice little texture. Instead of being flat wood, the slight texture that's being left behind will kind of mimic some of the textures that I'd normally find on flowers and vines that are in this particular design. I'll continue doing this until the entire piece is complete. While this dries, I'll go and clean off this foam brush. I've been using and washing and reusing this brush so many times, I can't remember when I originally bought it. I'm done with this white paint. I'm going to set that off to the side. Now, this is mostly dry, and what I like to do sometimes is apply paint over this slightly damp paint. It also helps add a little bit of texture without having to mix paint off to the side. I like to start out with the most prominent color on this design, and that is going to be the green vines that are around the outside and some of the leaves. For this, I'm just going to put down a little bit of this high quality acrylic directly on my cardboard here. And I don't want to go through cleaning all the brushes for all of the different colors that I have. So I like to use the dap method, which is I just grab a quality paper towel and I wad it up so that the end is like a nice little ball. And then I just dap that into the paint. And then I can come over here to the work and start just dapping that in. And I'll go through and paint all the areas that I'd like to have this nice green color. And the neat thing about this is even if I lift up some of that white paint and it reapplies in another spot, that just adds a little bit more texture and depth to this rather than everything being all the same color. Perfect. Now I'm ready to move on to the next color. I think I'm going to go for some yellow here. And same thing, I'll just grab a little bit of a towel here and just kind of place my thumb inside so it forms a little ball on the end. And I'll just pick up some paint with that and I'll move on to the next color. I had just those two. And if I find any spots that I missed when I did a previous color, I can always go back and wipe up any extra that I didn't want to have in that spot. And I can pick up that green again and go back in and fill in some of these areas here. And I'll continue doing this until I have everything painted with all the colors that I'd like. This method of dapping the paint on while that white base coat is still a little bit wet, I just love the effect on how it mixes that white paint with any of these other colored paints that I put over the top. Really adds a lot of texture and structure to this project. Last night, before I turned in, I took some Mod Podge, I watered it down ever so slightly, and I took this bottom layer on the back side. I put a nice even coat on the back side, and then with this foam brush, I also dabbed the edges here to seal in any of this char that is on the edge. So this way, when I handle my project now, I don't have any of that black char that shows up. The other thing that I did is I also took the same brush and I dabbed that Mod Podge across the top, sealing in the top surface. And the next step that I'm going to do is going to take the Mod Podge at full strength. I'm going to put a coat across the top of this surface and on the bottom of this surface, and I'm going to use that Mod Podge to glue these two layers together. And these two halves are now ready to be glued together. And because both surfaces are wet with this Mod Podge, it's really okay just to shift this around and not worry about any of that glue shifting around, smearing any of the work pieces. To clamp everything together, I'm going to take a piece of scrap cardboard that I have and place that over the top. And I have some sandbags here. I'll put a number of these on top to weight everything down to make sure that these two halves of the project glue together nice and straight. This was a quick and easy step here, gluing the two halves of the project together using Mod Podge. I'm going to give this ample time to make sure that the Mod Podge fully cures, gluing the two layers together. I'll be back after this is all set. It's now time to see how well everything glued up. One of the things that I forgot to do when I glued this up was to place some wax paper across the top of the project before putting this layer of cardboard down to ensure that nothing would stick together. So fingers crossed to make sure that I didn't slop that Mod Podge on too much. And I think I'm going to be okay. We'll pick that up, and this glued together very nice. And again, I've got Mod Podge on the top, the bottom, and this outside edge here. So no matter where I handle this project, I'm sure not to get any of that laser char on my hands. This is a great project using only 3 steps to find a graphic, import it into Lightburn software, and then step 2, doing the cutout, and then step 3, taking as little or as much time as you would like to paint and put embellishments around on this project. Here's the actual project that I'll be giving to my mother for her birthday. I spent the extra time to make sure that I painted this just right. I put glitter and embellishments on here to really make this thing sparkle and shine. I did go and put a hanging hook on the back side. And while I'm on the back side here, a few days before my mom's birthday, myself, my siblings, and nieces and nephews are going to get together for just a dinner. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity for everybody to sign the back of this. And then that way, all together, we can present this to my mother for her 80th birthday party. Project videos like this are some of my most favorite videos to produce for you. I understand that a lot of people are getting into lasers, they're new to it, and there's a lot of questions that they have, and that's why I like making these detailed project videos that help guide you along the way, not only providing the information on how to make a project, but like the very first step in this, providing resources for graphics for your own projects. Until we meet again, learn, create, and share.